Hi everyone. Today
Mm.
I have Kyle and Aidan from CartShare here to tell us about the great platform. Hi Kyle. Hi Aidan.
Hi, good morning.
Hi there.
I'm good, guys. How's the weather in Cape Town?
Pretty overcast, confusing as always, I think. Yeah,
Is it? It's
it's probably sunny and rainy at the same time. I can't tell.
Yeah, that's one thing about Cape Town that I don't like. You never know what to sort of prepare for. Um,
Yeah,
the the weather's great here in Joburg. But yeah. So guys, we're here to hear a bit more about CartShare and some of the fabulous work you guys have been doing. I think I'll take you, Kyle. How would you
yeah,
explain your platform CartShare and how did the concept come about?
awesome. So I think Aidan could probably speak a lot more to the details of the concept coming about, but
Okay.
yeah, basically, CartShare is a platform that aims to help the everyday person save more money on their grocery shopping. Because we've noticed that the one place, like with the increase of cost of living in both Cape Town and Johannesburg and all of South Africa, the one thing that I think is common amongst everybody is, it's the cost of groceries that is continuously increasing, and most households aren't able to afford the like a proper basket, nutritious basket of groceries. So yeah, with some of our research into the market, we found that there are actually a lot of gaps where people are not able to themselves figure out where to get the best prices for their groceries. And I think that yeah, we sort of noticed that I think that's quite hard for people to do it because most people will have to manually compare prices to find out where they can actually get the best for them relative to their situation, whether they have transport, whether they have to walk. And often you find that, especially places like ShopRite or these sort of retailers in communities that are supposed to be helping people, will exploit the fact that they are closer to people who don't have access to transport and will most likely buy all of their groceries there. But we believe that if we can show people the prices of groceries before they even step out of the door, that they can actually end up saving a lot more and putting that money to better use in other aspects of the household. And yeah, as for the coming up of our idea, this was Aidan's initial idea, and I don't know like what variation of the story that you want to give, but yeah, you're welcome to go with that.
Now go ahead, Aidan.
Yes. So CartShare is like the idea behind CartShare is of a necessity for myself. And it's a very simple story. I went shopping with a partner of mine for sanitary pads. I like really paid attention to the unit price because it's something that you need to get every single month.
Hmm.
I went to a different store with a completely different friend of mine about a week later, and there was a 60 rand difference between the two. And you don't really see the prices when you look like through the pamphlets or anything for certain products. And so that's where the idea of culture came from, where we looked around, there was no company that was taking note of prices online. There
Hmm.
was, of course, price check, but they weren't handling the FMCG brands.
Hmm.
And we were like, okay, let's get all the data into one place, help as many people as possible, and kind of build something that we would use and we would know people that we know would use as well.
Hmm. No, that's definitely something that has sort of um, bothered me a lot because you have all of these platforms where you get this convenience of shopping online and getting
Mm,
your goods delivered at home. But now I
mm,
have to cut across multiple apps to see
yeah.
where I'm getting
Yeah.
the cost benefit or benefit in terms of buying cheaper. I'm glad you touched on the data. So how do you guys get this stuff together so that I can compare ShopRite against Pick and Pay, for example.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, do you want to go for it or
no, okay.
okay?
So as of this moment, we are web scraping. Our plans for culture down the line are releasing the app, but actually collecting receipt data to get that semi real time understanding of the market, so that as prices change and as people's habits change as they purchase, other people in our system can actually see this.
Mhm.
So all the receipt data and all the web scraping data would go into a giant pool of data. that our users would just have access to as they would see fit.
Just to speak to a little bit to how it sort of came about. So at the beginning, I think CartShare has taken many different forms, and we've had many different forms of CartShare, and we pivoted quite a lot. So
Right.
initially, obviously, we tried to organize talking to retailers like ShopRite, Pick and Pay, and approaching them with this idea, and that's where it sort of came about, where we noticed that the can I say the community around data is very private and very specific
Yeah.
to whoever's holding it. So ShopRite has data; they're not willing to let it go unless they can get some type of leverage. And unfortunately, with this, it's the worst possible case scenario because then people could find out whether they are actually more expensive or cheaper than a different store. So from that, we had to sort of that like slapped our initial business idea completely out the window. We met with ShopRite, and they were like, "No,
Mm.
we wouldn't want to touch this." So yeah, that's when we came up with the web scraping solution to sort of get as much as we can from external resources that we sort of require the least amount of manpower because at the moment it's just myself and Aidan working on this initiative, and then eventually that's sort of how it came about to us choosing that route. And then the receipt data is something that we plan to implement once we are able to acquire a lot more users. And like Aidan mentioned, it would be semi-real time where, say, for example, you are in Santon, right, and you buy a loaf of bread and you upload that receipt. ShopRite's website might say it's 13 Rand, but you just bought it for 11 Rand. And now that you've uploaded the data, we can update our site and we have it on the receipt. We can see this is the price that you paid, this is the product, this is the time that you bought it at, this is the location that you bought it at. And now someone else can see that data and it can help them with their entire basket purchase. And that's also sort of what inspired the name CartShare. It's the ability to share what your cart is and help someone else make up theirs and at a cheap price.
I, and believe me, like the first thing that came to mind was exactly what you spoke about around the competitive edge that most of these retailers have, right? It's that my price, my data is my data. And I wouldn't necessarily want another competitor to see how I'm pricing my goods, because they're obviously it's going to give them a competitive edge, and there would be reluctance in that sense for them to sort of play ball. But I like the way you've sort of pivoted in terms of now web scraping and going into the realm of now users submitting the data. But now I'm thinking, what is the incentive from a user perspective?
Awesome. So
Oh,
that
okay.
was okay. Actually, I think you can go for this one. I think you're probably the best at it.
I think that question has been asked of us from like the point of ideation of how do we actually retain users? What is our rewards or interaction?
Mm.
So Scotch has iterated to quite a few ideas from just raw buying data, giving airtime to cash rewards. And what we've come up with for because the end product is we plan on rewarding people for buying.
Okay.
So when you scan the receipt, for every single item you get a point, and depending on the support of the brand, it'll get higher or set amount of points per item. So let's say Sasco supports CartShare. You buy a Sasco loaf of bread, instead of getting like 25 points, you'll get 400. And that money that is given to us as company is
Mm.
given directly to the end user because through all of our research and understanding, we've also found out that the brand foots the bill when it comes to getting to the user.
Okay.
So if there's like a campaign where there's a reduction in price, a lot of the time the brand is the one that's telling the retailer, hey guys, I want to actually shift my product from like 10 Rand to 8 Rand. Here is the difference. So you still make a profit, but I want my user to actually get the product cheaper. So instead of having to do this for every retailer, we kind of put the entire retailing package system into one package
Yeah.
for the brands to be, yeah, let's connect with our end user, get with the marketing, get with the understanding, and that's where our reward system actually comes
Okay. So, and it brings me to who your target is then. So your target isn't necessarily the supermarkets or the the floor where all the products sit. It's actually the brands that come and shelve their products in those aisles.
Yeah,
Or am I wrong in assuming that?
no,
No,
that's
100%.
perfectly right.
Okay. No, that's actually brilliant if you think of it that way, because now it's an incentive for the brands as well to get their products in customers' hands. Um, that's I think amazing. I think I now get how the product works. But tell me through, from inception to where you guys are, what have been some of the challenges? I know you guys have pivoted quite a bit, but what have been some of the notable challenges that you faced along the way?
I think I can speak on like the business front. Kyle will speak purely on the tech side, if that's okay.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
go ahead.
absolutely.
So for the business, one is we're both software engineers. We have no business, no marketing, no finance, none of that stuff behind us.
Okay.
And I think it's been tough because we have to learn what a e-commerce student, all that stuff would have to learn in a span of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, like 8, 9 months to get to
Yeah,
this point.
19, yeah. What about?
To get to this point of actually being able to have a conversation with you. So that's for one, a very big challenge. And for two is actually being able to produce what explain what we do at a rate which makes sense. Because a lot of people ask what we do, how we do it, and
Mm,
then they'll be, but you've only been active for 8 or 9 months, and then it's kind of walking through the business journey of like, what's your burn rate? Why is your burn rate X amount? And it's yeah, so it's just the very businessy side of business
mm.
has been very complicated because I myself don't have a business background, and neither, unfortunately, neither does Carl.
Yeah. I think sort of, yeah, thank you for having us, because I think it just, in light of it, made me realize like how, yeah, how much opportunity it means for us to actually be able to speak to you. And given the fact that we've sort of had a lot of our challenges have come from, I suppose, a lack of experience in certain areas. So, like Aidan mentioned, when it comes to understanding what the user wants, I think obviously like both Aidan and I have different backgrounds that contributed to why we wanted this to happen. Like I've moved around quite a lot, and I've noticed that depending on where you live,
Mm,
changes a lot. It really alters what your what your cost of living is, and the fact that something like that should be accessible to everybody is so location based. It's quite, yeah, quite interesting to find out. So from, I think from a tech point of view, I remember one day, or at some point in time we were doing interviews with video people because we needed to figure out like what is it that people actually want. So we went to from retailer to retailer, like standing in front asking people questions with our notebooks and stuff, and we had found out that people obviously, they value convenience.
yeah.
So that's, we, at some point it was on the table that we would become a delivery platform. And this is very shortly before Pick and Pay started doing it and Uber started doing it, and everybody had their own thing.
Mm,
But we very quickly found out that people preferred price and quality, and like what they're used to, like, the brands that they have at their home, the brands that their mothers buy, that their fathers buy. And I was sort of thinking like, cool, we've got all this awesome information, we've spoken to people. Now, how do we turn this into something that they can actually interact with and that can span across different types of users? Because we also figured out that I think being able to profile our target user and the different types that we can have was
mm,
quite a big challenge for us to actually narrow down and be like, cool, out of all of these people that we've spoken to, all the different types, we're going to kind of cater for this market, because we can't help everybody at the same time, unfortunately, which is
yeah.
something we had to battle with, sort of netting it down to, especially I think with us that has the ability to do something through tech. It's, we can see it happening, but in the world of business, things move a lot slower, and
Yeah.
people get to it a lot slower. So we need to sort of like be like, okay, cool, let's not do these 100 features at once. Let's do a half a feature, put it out there, see people actually like it, and then we iterate slowly from there. So yeah, I think that crossover from tech to business was a bit of a shift, but definitely been fun to learn.
Now,
Hopefully that answered your question.
I
There's a
can,
lot more struggles, but I don't think we want to make that the whole interview.
I can imagine. I mean, you in the beginning you said you guys quite pivoted quite a lot. So I'm guessing this is like a pinch of some of the struggles you guys have faced, and starting from even the concept of delivering and seeing that the market is now moving where these retailers want to do their deliveries themselves to now, having to pivot again. I'm sure the challenges have been quite a lot. But in so saying, like you know, uh, I know it's been just the two of you guys. Has this business been purely bootstrapped up until now, or is there some sort of funding that has assisted you to actually put the lights on?
Um, so unfortunately, no, it's been fully bootstrapped, no investment, no
Okay.
grants. I think that we've really tried to go like the purely grant route and try to find grants that try to help either BE-based businesses or companies that are trying to actually help the community.
Mm,
We haven't been successful in that end, so everything till this point since last year has been bootstrapped.
has
Yeah,
been boosted. Yeah.
we have been able to, like, very fortunate to have gone through some acceleration programs. I think, like, we just finished with iCollective,
Yes.
which was a collaboration between Innovation City and I think the Business Youth Tribe. So that was like super invaluable. It wasn't investment in the sense of,
Yeah.
here's 100 million rand, but it was investment in the sense of like, these are people that have actual experience in the industry, that have their own niches, like whether it's UX design, whether it's marketing, whatever it is. And I think that was one of the gaps that we noticed before, like we mentioned, with us lacking the business side of things. And so we really tried to target getting behind people who had experience and learning from them. So getting through acceleration programs like Seed Stars and like Innovation City, and trying to line it up as much as possible so we could try and equip ourselves with as much of the skills as we can before needing to actually, outsource the work, or before needing to bring other people on board. Because then it's the whole thing of making sure that we share the same vision and that sort of thing, which can be a bit rocky. I mean, even between the two of us ourselves, I think that's with anybody building a business, that's what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think investment in that sense, we have been successful with being able to get people who were willing to give us their time, which is actually quite a lot of people, surprising. Like if you ask people, people are, especially in South Africa, they're very willing to give their time and willing to give an ear and the experience and that sort of stuff. So yeah, in
Mm.
that sense, it's been very successful. But monetarily, yeah, we've been bootstrapping it ourselves since we started pretty much.
That's really admirable. And I like that you touched on some of the incubators that you guys have been part of, and how they've sort of assisted in your journey. And I mean, with the recent one, the FSAT Labs incubator.
Yes.
So how did that come about? How were the, how was that journey? Did you guys have to pitch? How did you guys get shortlisted for that incubator?
So I think if Set Labs was a really, really interesting one
Mm,
because at the time when I was looking at incubation programs for the company to go into, it wasn't one that was like directly in the news with in my feed kind of thing. Because we always see because of our previous incubation programs, like we saw Seed Stars, because of our network, we saw Innovation City and iCollective.
mm,
So I actually initially contacted Nathaniel, part of Africa Reader, and only from there was it more like a stepping stone in.
mm,
So we had to do like a full pitch. We had to show our pitch deck. We had to kind of run through our stage of the business
mm,
and where we are in regards to our product. So it's like, are we very early stage, having an MVP or prototype, or like, do we have a better understanding of the business but no actual product? And we were lucky enough to have a deep understanding of the business, of why we're doing it, as well as a lot of the background in regards to the business itself, like the financials, the pitch deck, and just an amazing team.
Oh, that's quite interesting. And so what does the incubator sort of involve? So now that you guys are in, what is that journey going to be like?
So the journey is more to kind of help the business person in what they require. So a lot of
Okay.
the time they'll have meetings about what do you need as a company. So that's the one that we've actually got done in the last 2 weeks is they've asked us what do we need. And
Mhm.
then there will be like there's a structured. meetings, understandings, having EAs come in. But things that have to them kind of going over is things like finances, legal, UI, UX design, meeting developers,
Mm,
actually pitching. So there's a lot of things that other incubation programs actually have not touched on. And I think the biggest one is the UI, UX and developers. Because I think, like Carl said, it's easy for us to do development, but there's only so much we can do. And it's very difficult in when it comes to hiring someone or getting someone else in the team that matches our values. And to be able to kind of get someone through a program and kind of have that buffer zone
mm.
makes it a lot easier. And it's one of the reasons why we actually joined SNL.
And in terms of partnerships, I mean, you guys are all in one hub, and probably the other startups that could potentially partner with you guys, or FSET Labs could potentially have partners that you guys can help grow the business and be able to fund some of the stuff that you guys are actually doing. Are there any sort of partnerships that you guys are eyeing, or would potentially look at getting for this year, or in the not so distant future?
Um, so I think on the partnership side, I can't really speak much. I think you kind of understand the businessy vibes, but there is a company that I think for me personally being in the program I'd like to connect with.
Mm.
And there's a company in Johannesburg called Trolley. So they have the experience, but they don't have the tech.
Oh,
And
nice.
I would love to just have a conversation, be like, what is the research that you have done over they've done it for like 2 years, like
Mm,
2 years, a year and a half. It's like, what have you guys done? Why haven't you gone into the market yet? What
mm,
is like that market fit that you've been waiting for? Or
mm,
like what is your boundaries been? So we can better understand in the situation that something does happen, how do we move around it? And I think that's something that's completely off topic. We also like the partnerships, but something that we've actually done to get to this point is that we've tried to contact competitors.
mm.
So like anyone that's in either half of what our business does, whether it be
Yeah.
price comparison or awards, and like we've just I wouldn't say grilled them, but like what's happened, why aren't you guys active,
Mm,
like what went wrong, and I think like that has been successful to this point in regards to our team dynamics, the
mm,
rate of work, our focusing on product. And I'd love to meet other companies that are trying to do what we're trying to do, just to understand where they are, what they're doing, what kind of angle are they coming from, whether it be helping the little guy, collecting data, like selling data, and just understand the market a little better.
mm,
Yeah, I think another reason why it might be a bit harder to sort of pinpoint specific partners we haven't spoken to yet is because one of the biggest things for us is to not charge our end user, so the person that will be comparing prices and getting the best deals. It's like that's something that we've been very adamant about from the beginning, is to not monetize that, and
mm,
finding someone else to share everything else that we share, and then also have that part is quite hard, especially from a business point of view, because it's quite easy to exploit, and it's quite easy to be like, let's charge them £5 a month for the service and make 5 times X amount of users that we get. So yeah, we have had the opportunity to partner with multiple people, but I think around that point specifically, and a few other points around trying to monetize it as much as possible, it's been a bit hard to find people who, like we mentioned, 100% match with the reason why we're doing this and have that the same passion and the same drive for the solution itself, because it's not just about how we're choosing to solve the problem. It's about solving the problem and addressing it. And I think a lot of other companies that we found have found their own way of addressing it. Is the kind of people we would love to speak to. And yeah, people who can, like you mentioned, like the company trolley, who can balance out a lot of the things that we don't have. So yeah, when it comes to like years of experience and having doctorates and masters, like those sort of things, we can learn from another company, or even potentially collaborate with someone who has um yeah resources in that sense that can sort of help balance it out. We can
mm.
still sort of go ahead and tackle the same problem, especially if it's along the same values. So yeah, hopefully we answered your question.
No,
because it
no,
was
no.
built around it. Yeah.
It answers it 100%, and I understand if there are any other partnerships that you're working on that you can't potentially talk about at the present moment. It's fine. It's understandable, and I like the fact that you guys going into this teachable and approaching people that have been in the space that um, um, you know have been in the space for quite some time to sort of get some learnings from what they've done, what they've sort of stumbled upon. I like that approach. It's not going into an industry thinking you know it. It's actually, approaching it with caution and saying, what have been
Yeah.
the stumbling blocks in your guys' journey that we potentially don't want to sort of make. But in saying that, then what does the future look like for you guys? What potential features? I know we spoke about incorporating the receipts into the application, but what are some of the other features we can sort of expect in future from CartShare?
So,
So
Carl, go
yeah,
ahead.
awesome. Thank you. So obviously a lot of it is subject to how the user actually responds in real time. Because like I mentioned before, you might think like, oh, it's 100 million features, let's use them, and then people only use like one or two of them. So
Mm,
I think one of the ones that we've been really excited about is having a budgeting feature that runs off of the receipt uploading. Because
mm,
from that, especially if you track everything from the receipt, you will be able to upload all of those numbers, and then we can just automate sort of a budgeting system that tells you like, cool, you spent so much money over the past month. This is where you spent it the most. This is what you spent it on the most. This is how much you saved since last month, and maybe some logistics around the reasons why. And obviously, trying to keep like the problem is having all the data and trying to extract analytics that people on a certain level can understand and can actually use and it's actually valuable to
mm,
them because we see it and we're like, oh, there's these 10 million things we can generate from them. Let's show them everything, but there's only maybe these four that actually matter to them and can really help them with planning the groceries for the next month.
mm,
So I think that's one of it. And the other one is trying to make it vital in terms of being able to share. So not just with sharing your receipts and sharing prices, but sharing budgeting across family members. So maybe you all like three people have an account, they all link an account, and everybody can go buy their own groceries, contribute as a household, and they can track like, cool. Now us as a household has spent this much on whatever it is. We've noticed that this is how we save money the most. Let's try and plan around this, or we've noticed that these products we aren't essential to what we need perhaps. And yeah, so I think that's two of the main features, and probably the third one is having analytics across the changes of prices relative to specific products, like branded products. Like you can see that canola fish oil for 2 liter has fluctuated a lot over the past 2 months, but maybe Crown has been around the same price. So if you're looking to go for a price or product, you're more likely to find a more stable price or a price is better suited to you for what your entire basket is, regardless of promotions, because it might still end up cheaper anyway,
mm,
not using a promotion. And yeah, being able to give people a history and actually visualize what's actually happening on the ground at these retailers, and not just having people who are working with this big data for specific retailers being able to see these things and use it for competitive advantage. Because ultimately, the people on the ground are the people that's feeling it the most, and those margins matter a lot to retailers. But I think it matters a lot more. Like the 29 difference matters a lot more to the person that's actually buying it to provide food
mm.
for their household.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, my mind just went crazy when you started talking about budgeting. I'm like, yeah, you can imagine the type of comparisons people do during like a Black Friday. And I'm
Hmm.
guessing, that's when most of the traffic will be sort of going onto your side because, in some instances you find that these are not necessarily, like you said, promotions, and the price is sort of hovering around what it used to be, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a price gain. So it's quite interesting, and I'd like to see it play out, and how it actually works out. And in terms of in future, are you guys looking to sort of create APIs where people can integrate with your platform, or not as yet?
Actually, yeah, no, we haven't thought about that because
Yeah.
I think our biggest thing coming into it was being very aware of poppy
Mm,
and the kind of data that we collect in regards to like
yeah.
our general system. Um, yeah, I think it's more just keeping everything as closed loop only because of like we know as like South Africans
Mm,
how much our data is worth, and that's something that we've brought across as a company is that we don't sell any personal data. The only people that have access to personal data is the company, and that's only for your account and stuff and for insights, generalized insights.
mm,
And I think like the API is very. We will have to probably look through it again, a conversation, look through it, actually decide whether or not API is viable. But
mm.
I think it would just be in regards to like the access the API would have, and that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's
And
one of those with
yeah,
private comes a great responsibility kind of things.
yeah.
Yeah,
So we don't want to be giving it to people who might use it for the wrong reason. So yeah, I think like Eddie mentioned, some careful consideration around that. And
Mm.
yeah, but it's definitely a good thing to look into. Thank you for the suggestion.
Not a problem. And in terms of accessibility, I walk into a store and the first thing I do, I grab the pamphlet with the
Hmm.
promotion, which is printed. Are you guys looking at any of those as an option to say somewhere I can find if I don't have access to, digital means or data or whatever, that I can access this catalog through print?
I don't think we've looked into any other forms of media as of yet, because I think one thing we found, especially that a lot of our potential investors and sponsors that we've spoken to,
Mm,
especially from foreign countries, haven't I think
mm,
understood is that a large population of South Africa actually uses phones and
yeah,
they're
it's
quite tech
digital.
savvy, especially yeah, it's very very digital, and especially if you're looking at lower income communities, people often assume like it's not really there, but I think
Mm,
in certain cases it's there a lot more than you might think. So yeah, I think we've from the beginning, doing our research and speaking to people, we found that we could actually address helping a large group of people than most people might think. And yeah, I think we really believe in that approach first. And yeah, if we're looking into helping other people later down the line, then yeah, I think that's something we could look into as well. But not at the moment now.
okay. No, no, that's awesome. It's just ideas that just come into my mind, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking, how how are you guys, sort of solving these, sort
Mm.
of issues? But it seems like you guys are on top of the ball. You've thought about it. But yeah, we've reached the end of the interview. I think I've enjoyed it quite a bit. I've learned a bit. And I'm really glad that you guys honored the interview. I appreciate the time that we spent here learning about CartShare. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for
much for
having
having
us.
us.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay,
Yeah,
not a problem. Cheers.
ciao.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay. Bye.
Yeah,
Cheers.
bye.